Victor Barranco on trombone. Sergeant Major Craig Frederick on the trumpet and the composition. The Army Blues.
Question comes on passing the bill to be engrossed, pending which Mr. DeLeo of Norfolk offers amendments in the hands of the clerk. Clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 7, Mr. DeLeo of Norfolk moves to amend the bill by adding the following section. Notwithstanding a general special law to the contrary, no requirement shall be placed on gun owners by any authority or constitutional officer acting without the discretion of the legislature.
Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. The chair recognizes Mr. DeLeo of Norfolk. As the gentleman approaches the microphone, the chair would ask all members to please take their seats and subdue their conversation. What purpose the gentleman rise? The chair can determine that a quorum is not present and will order a quorum roll call forthwith. It will remain open for 3 minutes. Court officers summon the members and inform them that a roll call is in progress. Have all members voted? Yeah. Have all members voted who wish to do so? The chair can ascertain that Have all members voted who wish to do so? Time for voting has expired. The clerk will display the tally. 145 voted present. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. The chair will recognize Mr. Dooley of Norfolk. Members are asked to please take their seats and pay due attention to the gentleman at the microphone. Court officers, please clear the aisles. Members, please take your seats. Court officers, please clear the aisles. Members will please pay due attention to the gentleman at the microphone. The chair recognizes Mr. Dooley of Norfolk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin my debate, I would like to ask for a call of the yeas and nays on this amendment.
Mr. Dooley moves when a vote be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. Those joining in will please rise. Monitors return the count. First Division, 0. Second Division, 19. Sufficient number having risen when a vote is taken or taken by a call of the yeas and nays. Chair recognizes Mr. Dooley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. This amendment is very, very simple in its philosophy, in so much that what I'm trying to do is protect the sanctity of this legislative body. I want to make sure that on this bill that there is ongoing protection for what we are trying to do here. What this amendment does is states on the record that any changes or any further restrictions or rules imposed upon gun owners must be done through the legislature and not by a constitutional officer or another authority acting under their own authority. I realize that there will be some debate in so much that stating that this will limit the roles of police chief, in so much that they will not be allowed to do what they want to do and have their discretion. But this underlying law, this underlying bill has in the provisions that they have that authority, they have that leeway, they have that discretion. This does not take away that discretion of the police chiefs. What this does do is it helps create the protection that if there are any abuses of this bill and continuations beyond the scope which we are intending here today, that they will be limited without further action by this body. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Mr. Bradley of Hingham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through the members. I appreciate the gentleman offering the amendment. However, the amendment would really alter as we've discussed today, the delicate balance that we've developed in this bill. in the bill, there is a section where the chief still has discretion, although the chief would have to put that in writing for the first time so that the individual who's denied will know exactly why they're denied and can take that appeal. If we were to pass this amendment, what we didn't do in there was limit the scope of the chief's authority. We said if the individual is deemed to be a public safety threat, that the chief can deny. So now if we're saying if the chief determines what that threat may be, he won't be able to use that as one of the reasons to deny, because the gentleman has said they must come back to the legislature to get the okay. It will also limit the state police, who are also a licensing authority. They won't be able to do that. They'd have to come back to the legislature. Courts, which would then take the appeal from the individual, would not be able to find that appeal because they're also a licensing authority. And the gentleman speaks to constitutional officers here. We tell constitutional officers what they can and can't do, and some of their powers are laid out within our Constitution drafted by John Adams so long ago, but we don't tell them what they can't do. And there's a reason for that. So I understand what the gentleman's trying to do, but I think you've seen here today, when we're going to do gun legislation, we take the time to look at it. We draft a good piece of legislation, which we've had here today, but is it a fragile coalition that we're holding together? And it's because the bill is what I think is perfectly balanced. So I'd ask you that the amendment not be adopted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Mr. Frost of Auburn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you to the members of this House, I rise in support of the amendment. And I believe the gentleman from Norfolk, in the way he is proposing this amendment, says that above and beyond this bill. So whatever authority has been given to the chiefs of police, the state police, or any other agency that's not a part of the legislature will still be able to carry out their duties within the confines of the bill. What the gentleman from Norfolk is getting at, however, is if, let's say, the Attorney General in the future chooses to impose regulations that are above and beyond this bill, that individual shouldn't be able to just go and do that, that they should have to come back to the legislature and propose a law. So I think that's what the gentleman is getting at, and I'm sure the gentleman from Norfolk can correct me if I did not address it correctly. But I do not believe that the amendment, by voting for it or against it, would impose anything on existing authorities within the language of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Roll call having been ordered, roll call will be open forthwith and remain open for 3 minutes. Court officers summon the members. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? Time for voting has expired. The clerk will display the tally. 30 votes in the affirmative, 120 votes in the negative. The amendment is not adopted. Question comes on the adoption of the bill, in which passing the bill to be engrossed, in which Mr. Linsky of Natick offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk. Clerk will read the amendment as changed.
Amendment number 14 has changed. Mr. Linsky of Natick moves to amend the bill by adding the following sections. Section 10E of Chapter 269 of the General Laws of the Spring and 2012 official edition hereby amended by...
There be no objection. The clerk will dispense with the further reading of the amendment. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted.
some man crazy enough to join the cops? Find out, you let me know.
This has happened before. It'll probably happen again.
Question comes on passing the bill of E.M. Gross, pending which Representative Andrews of Orange offers amendment in the hands of the clerk. The clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 24, Ms. Andrews of Orange moves to amend the bill by adding the following section. There shall be a special commission established pursuant to section
There be
2A.
no objection, the clerk will dispense with the further reading of the amendment. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. The amendment is not adopted. Question comes on passing the bill to be engrossed, which Representative Cantwell of Marshfield offers amendment in the hands of the clerk. The clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 23. Mr. Cantwell of Marshfield moves to amend the bill in Section 6 in line 209 by inserting after
There be
officer.
no objection. The clerk will dispense with the further reading of the amendment. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. The chair recognizes Mr. Cantwell of Marshfield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members, I rise to speak of Amendment 23 that I have filed. Before doing so, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, and others who have worked so hard to bring this bill to the floor. I understand it is an incredibly complex bill with many facets, and I just want to speak to 4 of them. Mr. Speaker, I filed an amendment here that follows work when I was an assistant district attorney doing work in a juvenile justice unit. And, Mr. Speaker, we found how important school resource officers were to making sure that our schools indeed were safe. I've filed an amendment here that first and foremost establishes a grant program for school resource officers subject to appropriation that can help our school systems that adopt school resource officers indeed in getting funds for training for active shooter response, for crisis planning, for youth development, how to look at positive school discipline and juvenile law. Mr. Speaker, this is not something that's specifically involved or included in this bill. We do note, meeting with yourself and with the gentleman from Hingham, that there is a Section 67 that calls for a special commission that is going to be looking at ways to make sure that the school resource officers, the program is implemented effectively. I'd be asking, and I'll indeed be looking to work with that commission to involve and include this grant program. Mr. Speaker, the other part that I feel very strongly about that we hope will be involved with this special commission is to make sure that we have memorandum of understanding between a school system and between the police departments. In my experience, those departments that had a memorandum of understanding, the officers who were there had clear direction for how they would be operating, and indeed the schools knew what their roles were to be, defined roles and responsibilities. It makes for a more effective partnership and ensures school discipline matters remain the jurisdiction of educators and not automatically something that goes to the courts. I think this is another important matter that I want to bring up with the special commission. 2 final issues. One, we think that the school resource officers, as they're doing their work, that we'd want them to collect data relating to their involvement in the schools with arrests, to be able to know under what circumstances arrests took place, just so we know down the line how the effectiveness of this program, how it's operating, and to get an idea, again, of comparing which systems operate most effectively and which ones could need some help. I'm basing this on research of the National Center brief from EDC Learning, EDC, a program that had a study authored by Ben Thomas, who's a master's in science who works here at the State House. And finally, we want to make sure that we limit the involvement of youths who are being automatically brought into the criminal justice system when they do act out. We want to make sure that some of these things would stay within the confines of just school and the school discipline. With my understanding, speaking through you, Mr. Speaker, understanding this special commission in Section 67 is to be looking at these very matters. I'm confident that we'll be able to try to address them through this bill. I'll be removing my amendment with an understanding that we're addressing this through the existing bill. And if there are some areas that don't get addressed, I'd look forward to working with you, Mr. Speaker, coming back at another appropriate time, particularly for the funding for these school resource officers and their training. We look forward to having a future debate on this. I thank you very much for your time, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you, the members, for your time and your consideration.
Mr. Cantwell asks unanimous consent to withdraw his amendment. Chair objection. Chair has none. Question comes on passing the bill to be engrossed, pending which Mr. Gabali of Arlington offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk. The clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 20, Mr. Garbely of Arlington and other members of the House move to amend the bill by adding the following sections. Section 22 of Chapter 32A of the General Laws is hereby amended.
There being no objection, the clerk will dispense with the further reading of the amendment. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Question comes on passing the bill to be engrossed, in which Mr. Norton of Clinton offers amendment in the hands of the clerk. The clerk will read the amendment.
Mr. Norton of Clinton moves to amend the bill in section 4 by striking out line 26, the words which, and inserting in place of the following words, or the Commonwealth Fusion Center, which...
There being no
subject to
objection, the clerk will dispense with further reading of the technical amendment. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The technical amendment is adopted.
Mr. Peterson of Grafton, doubts the presence of a quorum. The chair can ascertain that a quorum is not present. Court officers will summons the members and inform them that a quorum roll call has now been called and will be open for 3 minutes. Have all members voted? Time for voting has expired. The clerk will display the tally. 140 members, 47 members being present. Chair can ascertain that a quorum is present. Members are please asked to take their seats and subdue their conversations. The chair will recognize Mr. Sylvia of Fall River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to our members. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give my first speech from the floor and ask our members to support this important legislation. Like so many who have stood here and have experienced this remarkable process, I feel blessed to have the opportunity, yet I know, Mr. Speaker, that I could have taken an easier path, an issue perhaps more obscure, an issue with less emotion. However, today, Mr. Speaker, perhaps because of my life experiences and my responsibility as a lawmaker, I stand and speak impassioned by both the proposed legislation and the issue of gun violence. I'd also like to thank, of course, the people of the 7th Bristol District, those folks who had the confidence in me and who have allowed me to be their voice. And I pray each day that I will do some good. I'd also like to thank our court officers, those legislative staff who are here in the chamber, visitors in the gallery, our clerk, our House Clerk, Mr. James, who is always there to support not only myself but every member. You are a gentleman, sir, and a great historian. And in a special way, Mr. Speaker, the Speaker Pro Temp, the gentlelady from Somerset, who has been a great support for myself. So I thank you for your kindness and your assistance. It will never be forgotten. Mr. Speaker, the freshman orientation started on December 11th, 2012. It was the first time that 15 freshman legislators gathered at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And it was an exceptional orientation and training. Exceptional, and it never received any fanfare. Since then, of course, that freshman class has grown to 28 in number. But it was an opportunity for that freshman class, who really didn't have a clue, and I can speak for myself, had no idea what to expect, to be there with leadership from both sides of the aisle, Minority Leader and his staff, and all leadership present, to look at this process. And for 2 days, we were immersed in the process of what could be expected, legislation. And unfortunately, the day we left, on December 14th, we learned as we were driving of the grisly details. The news of 20 children brutally murdered, 18 sustained multiple gunshot wounds, 6 adults, school personnel. The worst U.S. school shooting in U.S. history. As I drove back to Fall River, like many of you who drove that day, I listened to CNN, and hearing that account of what was taking place, the vision of bodies laying in a classroom, it was incredible to think that this went on for hours. As a person of faith, I prayed for those children. I prayed for those family members to think of the loss of a child. Many of us can't even imagine that happening. I thought of my daughter and my grandchildren. I immediately wanted to call them. I wanted to call them to hear their voice. I asked them to be here today. I was on and off 3 times on this bill. And I wanted to hear their voice, to tell them that I love them, to let them know that I love them, and to know that they were okay, that they were safe. The next thing I wanted to do, and I was brand new at it, but I wanted to fix it, like many of you. And obviously, there were 60 bills that were filed. We all wanted to fix this act of violence, this unusual act of violence that we can't imagine. How could anyone do something like that to another human being, to other human beings? And that went on for days. And of course, we were hearing all of these accounts for days, and funerals, what other states were going to do regarding legislation, what the federal government was going to do. And here we are. As a member of the Public Safety Committee, the Joint Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, I was part of that group. And Mr. Speaker, you chose well in your chairman, Chairman Norton, the gentleman from Clinton, and the members of that committee. Every one of those individuals on that committee had either law enforcement experience or experience in the military. Every one of them participated in those trips across this Commonwealth, put on many miles to listen to the hundreds of individuals who testified both for the coalition of anti-gun coalition and those supportive of their Second Amendment rights. 2 groups of people that want to reduce gun violence. Not good versus evil, but 2 good groups of people. People that we started to get to know and care about because they came to many of the same hearings. People who never committed any crime. Mr. Speaker, for 25 years I carried a firearm. A little over 2 years as a United States Marine throughout the South Pacific and in Vietnam. And then when I returned to the United States, through the GI Bill, I started classes at Northeastern University and received my undergraduate degree in criminal justice. And just prior to graduation, became a police officer for the city of Fall River. Spent 2 years in the Uniform Division and 19 more as a detective in the Major Crimes Division. During that period of time, I investigated over 40 homicides. First arresting officer. From that period of time in 1974 to 1998, I arrested more than 260 individuals for unlawful possession of a firearm. Assault and battery by means of a firearm, homicide, unlawful discharge of a firearm. Not one of those 200-plus individuals that I charged with firearms violations was a lawful firearms owner. Not one of them had an FID card. Not one of them had ever had a license to carry. None of them. We know the people who commit these crimes are not lawful gun owners. Yet, Mr. Speaker, every action that involves gun violence is not an act on lawful gun owners, not an attempt to take guns away. It's not an act of disarmament. It's not an erosion of Second Amendment rights. I and all of you here are sworn to the Constitution. And we should do everything in our power, and certainly I will, to protect those rights. Yet I am concerned about that one life, the sanctity of life. And I will do anything I can to protect that life. And in this compromise legislation, Mr. Speaker, we do that. We protect lives. And there are so many angles to this legislation. We have mental health. We know there's lots more to do with mental health. It's a separate issue in its own right. We have to look at what we do in our schools. Resiliency schools, issues like truancy, drug addiction, antisocial behavior, the love affair our young people have with violence, Xbox, so many issues. We can file bills from now to eternity. But we have to attack the violence issue. All of this has to do with those issues that surround mental health, Mr. Speaker. Politics is the art of possible. And if that is the case, then compromise is the artistry of democracy. Without compromise, there's no governing. The conundrum of compromise has proven unlikely in our nation's capital, Mr. Speaker, and the people of our nation are tired of inaction and failure. Compromise can be difficult for some who can only see it their way. But who can only see it one way, but governing a democracy without it is impossible. We can only govern through compromise. This is a perfect example of that compromise, Mr. Speaker. And to be able to do that shows courage. It is not a weakening. It is not a giving in. To be able to meet with those good two sides, two groups of people, good people, who want to reduce violence without weakening our constitutional rights, and yet reducing gun violence in any way that we can is a win. It's a win for all of us. I was worried what was going to happen tomorrow. The emails tomorrow. Not today. This is easy today, but this isn't a bridge or a road construction job. This is the Constitution, and this is the lives of people. And for some of us who think that this issue ends at our border, it transcends much further than that. This is not an issue that ends at our border, Mr. Speaker. It transcends to every woman and child in this Commonwealth, and in this case, and on occasion, every once in a while, and the reason why I'm here, it transcends beyond the confines of this Commonwealth. Just transcends throughout the nation. Because no one has been able to do this. I just had a conversation out there with folks from the NRA in Gold. No one has done this. This is unique. And because of that compromise, it was able to be done. And it's not perfect. But what is? Mr. Speaker, we have done something here that others are unable to do. And while other legislators litigate, we're legislating. And we're doing positive things for the people of our Commonwealth, saving lives. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to thank you for your exceptional leadership. I am humbled to be here today, to be a member of this body. And I am also thankful to share with all of you. Both sides, I have learned so much from both Republican and Democrat alike. I want to thank the gentleman from Grafton and the gentleman from Franklin and the gentleman from Attleboro, and again, the gentleman from Clinton and Brockton. So many people who have had so much to do with this legislation. And I want to thank you for your focus and your respect and your courtesy. But most of all, for the respect that we show each other, because that is so important. Thank you all, and God bless the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Chair recognizes Mr. Linsky of Natick. Members will please take their seats. Members are please asked to take their seats, subdue their conversations. Mr. Linsky of Natick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. First, when this vote is taken, I would ask it be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. No, it doesn't, no.
Mr. Linsky moves that when a vote is taken, it be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. All those joining with will please rise. First division, 10. Second division, 22. There be insufficient number having arisen when a vote is taken, it shall be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. Mr. Linsky of Natick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The goal of this legislation is not to have the toughest gun laws in the nation. The goal of this legislation is to have the most effective gun laws in this nation. And when this bill becomes law, I would suggest to you that we will have achieved that goal. Quite simply, this bill, when it becomes law, will save lives. This bill addresses the various types of gun violence. It's not just about addressing and reducing gang violence. It's about reducing domestic violence. It's about reducing suicide. It's about reducing all types of gun violence, and it's about ensuring the safety of everyone. It's not just enough. It's not just enough to pass tough laws. It is more important to pass tough laws. And this bill does that because it increases the penalties for gun trafficking. It creates a special state police unit to combat gun trafficking and the illegal sale of guns. It establishes for the first time clear standards for the issuances of licenses to carry and firearm identification cards to make that process fairer and simpler and easier and more transparent. And it makes Massachusetts the leader in preventing gun violence in this country. This bill, for the first time, will establish effective, real-time background checks on every single gun transfer and purchase in Massachusetts. In addition to that, for the first time, Massachusetts will finally join the National Instant Check System database to ensure that when people acquire guns, they will have a full and complete background check. Mr. Speaker, this bill, quite simply, is brilliant. What it does is it makes it simpler, it makes it smarter, it makes it more effective, and this is a bill that we should all be proud of. This bill has been 18 months in the making. Thousands of people testified on all aspects of this bill. Mr. Speaker, you established a commission that heard from many types of people, and many types of people had input into this, and it is a bill that respectfully respects the Second Amendment rights of everyone, but most importantly, in addition to respecting those Second Amendment rights, it ensures public safety. And that is a goal that everyone in this chamber should aspire to. I thank you for bringing this bill forward, and I ask that this bill be engrossed.
Chair recognizes Mr. Peterson of Grafton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. And I know it's late, and I will try to be brief. First, I have to thank all of you in this chamber. And it actually started 20 years ago when one of the first debates that I participated in was the Gun Control Act of 1998, Chapter 180, which was touted as a great piece of legislation. It's going to solve the crimes across the Commonwealth. We'll have the toughest gun laws in the Commonwealth. And me, as sophomore rep, got up and pointed out that there was a section in the bill, because I sat and read the bill, that talked about the exemption for individuals to march in parades with firearms. And the reference in that bill was for the illegal taking of brown trout in intercoastal waters. That was the exemption. So if you had that exemption, you could march in a parade with a firearm. That bill didn't get changed until December of that year, when I actually stood here at the last day of the session, to the point that I said we have to have public hearings across the Commonwealth about this legislation that had passed. And the then Speaker agreed to doing that, and we changed that bill. For all the years after that, most of you have known that I take a very active role in protecting our Second Amendment rights across the Commonwealth, whether it's speaking to individuals, going out to events, and working here in the chamber. You all have been very respectful, and I thank you for your friendship and respect on all fronts through this. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago when you rolled out the bill, 4121, I tried to convince you not to have an event on a Tuesday morning. And I was standing at the front of the event, and you came in with all your people. And you looked over to me with a grin on your face and said, "George, are you going to stand with me today?" And I had to say at that point in time, "No, Mr. Speaker, I cannot be with you today." And from, I believe, the work that I've done on this issue, a lot of you realize that that bill was flawed and was a problem. And you came and talked to me, and you came and talked to others, and I know you talked to the Speaker. And through your efforts, we've been able to put a group of people together. So I want to thank the gentleman from Hingham, the gentleman from Milford, the gentleman from Quincy, and the gentleman from Boston. Pretty eclectic little group of legislators to work on such a very difficult issue for all of us across this Commonwealth. And I do want to thank my classmate from Clinton for all the work that he has done on this piece of legislation as well. Several years ago, I worked with a gentleman from Cambridge, and we had a very difficult bill that we put together on trying to solve some of the problems that were created in the 1998 bill. We were successful in getting it through the House chamber, but it never made it through the Senate, and those changes were never adopted. We've had a lot of good work together, and this bill is a very good bill. So I'm proud to stand here today to say that I will be supporting this piece of legislation. It needs to be done. There are pieces in this piece of legislation that start to fix or modify some of the damage that was done with the 1998 law. And there is a lot of good pieces in here where we can start to track information, where the guns are coming from, who is using them, who are the problems, and how we can then more effectively draft legislation in the future to make this a safer Commonwealth for all of us. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity to be able to work on this piece of legislation. And to you, my colleagues, thank you for your respect and friendship through this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I hope the bill is passed to be engrossed.
Roll call having been called, the roll call is called forthwith and will remain open for 3 minutes. Court office will summons the members and tell them a roll call is in progress and will remain open for 3 minutes. Have all members voted or wish to do so? Have all members voted? Time for voting has expired. The clerk will display the tally. There being 112 members in the affirmative, 38 members in the negative, the bill is passed to be engrossed. Just a couple of housekeeping. If folks could just take their seats for 1 second. I'd like to make a brief statement, then a couple of remembrances for a couple of our members who have passed this past weekend before we break for the day. Before I do say that, I sincerely want to thank the membership for this, what I consider to be an historic vote today. When I had the young ladies here today from Revere High School, I told them that they were here on a day that I think will always be remembered in the history of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in terms of being a proud day, in terms of what we were able to accomplish in terms of our gun laws here in Massachusetts. And once again, Massachusetts will be looked upon in history as the leader, as just another example, only this time in our efforts to control gun violence. Gun violence, I think we all know, has become more and more prevalent, unfortunately, as time has gone on. We used to look at incidents such as Sandy Hook as incidences that may occur every year, every 2 years, and 3 years, but now that just doesn't seem to be so anymore. Now I think it almost seems like it's a monthly occurrence that somewhere across this country there's going to be some type of mass shooting and some type of mass killing, whether on a school campus, a theater, or any other place where people may congregate. In addition to that, we only have to look at our local newspapers to see what's going on in the streets. And I was about to say in the streets of our city, but I did say in the streets of every city and town in the Commonwealth. Every day, we're seeing more and more random shootings, gang-type shootings, if you will, shootings of innocent victims who just happen to be getting in the way of someone shooting at someone else. And these instances are occurring more and more as we go along. This has been an issue that has divided this country greatly. It has divided each and every state, and we all know what's going on in Washington and their attempts to try to address this issue. Other states have made attempts. Some of those attempts have led to findings of laws that have been found to be unconstitutional. Some states have gone so far as they weren't even able to get to the point of being able to take a vote on gun laws. And quite frankly, that's what makes, I think, Massachusetts such a very, very special place with the vote that we took here today. That people from all across this state, whether from the east to the west, liberal, conservative, Democrat, and yes, a Republican, came together to pass a bill which I believe is a great bill. Not a good bill, I think it's a great bill. And a bill which I believe can save lives. It's a bill that I think that addresses many of the concerns that were raised to us by the lawful gun owners of the Commonwealth. And I want to sincerely thank them for all the friendly emails they've sent me over the last couple of weeks. But I think that hopefully we've addressed many of their concerns. And I think we have addressed those concerns very well. And I think that we've also addressed many of the concerns that were raised by some of the folks who obviously wanted to bring some type of control of the gun violence that is going on all across our state. There are many people that I could thank in terms of making today possible. But there is just one gentleman who I would particularly like to mention. And it's very difficult for me to mention this gentleman because as I'm speaking to the Democratic members, they mention his name as someone, if I could get him on board, that they would vote for this bill. And I said, how do you think that makes me feel as Speaker of the House, that I have to get a Republican to get on to vote for this bill, for you to vote for this bill? You know, that's really not the most pleasant feeling as the Speaker of the House. But he came into this with a mind wide open, with an idea that he wanted to get to yes, and most importantly, to get to a place where he felt he could do right by the gun owners and right by the constituents and right to bring more public safety to the people of Massachusetts. And I will say in my many years of being here, this is one of the most courageous acts, if you will, and one of the most selfless acts that I've seen by a legislator. And I can't thank him enough for the time and the effort that he worked to get to yes with us here today. And I can't thank him enough, the gentleman from Grafton, George Peterson. And with that, I am announcing a George Peterson for Representative write-in campaign. Those of you who would like to join me. With that, I would also now like to have a couple of remembrances, if we will. For those of us who entered this great chamber in 1991, we lost two of our members this past weekend. First of all, I'd like to pause to honor former member Representative Douglas Peterson, who died on July 1st. Doug represented the towns of Marblehead, Swampscott, and Lynn for over 15 years, until he was appointed Commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources, where he served until 2009. Doug was a dedicated public servant who passionately advocated for his constituents in environmental issues. He is survived by his wife of 28 years, Nancy Peterson, and his two children. I would now ask you to please join me in a moment of silence for Doug Peterson. Thank you. I'd now like to also pause to honor former Representative Brian Canjamilia, who passed away over this past weekend. Brian represented his hometown of Billerica from 1991 to 93 and later served as a town selectman. He was extremely involved in a wide variety of local organizations, including in Billerica the Elks, the Arts Council, and the Howe Revitalization Committee. He leaves behind his father, Vincent, and his brother and two sisters. I now again ask you to join me in a moment of silence for former Representative Brian Canjamilia. Thank you. Chair does not expect any further roll calls. The House will be, by the way, for the information of the members, we will be in informal session tomorrow. Whoop. Mr. Peterson of Graff moves for reconsideration. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Reconsideration does not prevail. For what purpose does the gentleman rise? Wow.
Mr. DeLeo Winthrop, puts an order in the hands of the clerk. Clerk will read the order.
Ordered that when the House adjourns today, it adjourn to meet tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m.
Question on the adoption of the order. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The order is adopted. Representative Ehrlich of Marblehead moves that the House adjourn today and do so in respect to the memory of Douglas W. Peterson, a member of the House from Marblehead from 1991 to 2007 inclusive. Question comes on that motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion is adopted. Mr. Peterson of Grafton now moves that the House stand adjourned. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. House stands adjourned to meet tomorrow, Thursday, 11 a.m. in an informal session.